Welcome back to SEO Conspiracy.com with a very, very special guest today, Kristine. Bonjour, Kristine.
Bonjour.
How are you saying in English? Kristine Schachinger? That's it? Schachinger?
Yeah, in American it's Schachinger. You're probably
Schachinger.
closer to the German pronunciation, yeah.
So I'm honored. I'm very pleased to have you on board because as far as Google goes, as far as SEO goes, I mean, you probably know Google SEO better than people at Google themselves. Anyway.
I didn't go that far, but I hope I know a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that might be a good title for the video, actually. how to know Google SEO better than Googlers. Yes. So because Kristine, you've been doing this a long time. I think we started about around the same. When did you start? What year did you start?
And I started in digital longer than I'd like to say, but 1998. But I started SEO 2004, 2005.
Yeah. So yeah, I was 2003 and very serious in 2004. So same, but you come from a more technical development code. You are in the matrix.
Yeah.
I can't count. I count 10 by 10. I can divide by 2. I come from a marketing, branding background. And thank you for, and you are in Las Vegas. So it's 1 a.m. For me, and it's 4 p.m. for you. But you have the Eiffel Tower. I'm French, but I don't live in France. But thank you for the.
Yeah, and I put the night photo just because it's meaningless during the day. It just looks like a building.
Yeah, and it's gonna match me with the night with the clipping on my. I know because we didn't meet long ago, but we hit it off very well, and you've been watching me getting wasted with with my SEO friends from the UK. Yeah, the lots of alcohol, lots of weed, and well, forbidden words on.
You need to give Chris Simmons a shout out for the Corona Pub, though. He's done a great job. Listened to some music earlier today, did the pub quiz yesterday, so it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, we have the same things, but we just drink. we just, as the French, we just drink. You guys, I mean, they do a lot of work. No, it's Chris is really running this thing. It's very fun. But so what we're gonna do? We're gonna start about learning a little bit who you are, what you do, and then you're gonna teach us how to beat the game, how to be number one on Google. Oh no! First, of course, because this is SEO Conspiracy. So first, we're gonna. After we meet, we know a little bit more about you. We're going to talk about your favorite urban legends and myth. Then we're going to go on into the matrix of Google. And then we'll see where it goes. It's 100% freestyle, as always. And if you thought that Dixon Jones put on a wig, no. Dixon Jones is on Monday, 7 o'clock, London time. This is long form. It could be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours until I fall. Maybe we'll do a little series. We'll see. We'll see where it ends. So let's start. You have the reputation to be the last resource, the saver. We call Kristine when the site nobody can fix it, and you find the solution. But you also one of the most vivid. What I like about you wrote what, like 120 articles all over the main publications, right? In English.
over the years, yeah.
Yeah, but you are no bullshit SEO type of person. That's what I like about you. you say it like it is. You are, I wouldn't say you are controversial, but you just, and you do it in a nice way. I'm well known for being controversial, but sometimes being a little. I would love to be you, like to have this little nice touch to be okay. Here's a slam dunk. I'm I'm slapping you, but I'm doing it with style.
I try not to slap too hard. I usually just stick to like not personal things. I mean, mind you, if you see my Twitter account, there's a lot of trolls that I'm arguing with on a regular basis, so that's a little different. But professionally speaking, yeah, they. I try to be more about process than about what's happening with the Google itself. I lately I think I've gotten to be considered maybe controversial just for speaking out when I think Google's wrong, which I think as SEOs we should always do that because
Mm-mm.
my responsibility is to my client, not to Google. But otherwise, yeah, I try to be pretty fair, unless someone verbally attacks me, and that's a different story. So.
We gonna get into your. I mean, we all have this love-hate relationship with Google. So
And
we're gonna
people,
we're gonna talk about it. But
yeah,
first, yes, you live in beautiful Las Vegas,
I do. Yeah.
and so you have the ability to combine the technical and the marketing. So that's kind of a superpower in SEO because uh, usually you have technical profiles, you have more like content profiles, you have link building profiles, and you got all of them. How did that come about?
Well, primarily just how my brain works. So my dad is very mathematical. He designs hospitals, logistics for hospitals, architecture, all that. My mom was very creative, so she did a lot of creative writing. She was a dancer. She did a lot of marketing. We had a family store, so she did a lot of ad copy, things like that. So I grew up around a family business, and then I grew up with parents that were diametrically opposed in how they think about things. And so my brain is pretty much middle brain. Like I need to do creative and logical things at the same time. So when I got out of college, I had a degree in sociology and art, which meant I was a barista for a year because making coffee was about the only thing they'd hire me
Mm.
for with that degree. So I saw an ad in the paper one day for a HTML web designer, and I was like, I have no idea what any of this is because this was back when people weren't just started to get hired for those things. And so I went out and I got a book on HTML, and I was like, I could do that. And then I went in and the interview, and because of my art degree, they hired me because I said you can teach me code, but you can't teach someone how to design.
Mm.
So they accepted that answer. They hired me. I did that for a year. Then I moved into a publisher that was just starting to do websites. So I did Reba McEntire, country singer here in the States. I did Martha Stewart, worked on all those kind of accounts. And back then, if your design won the account, you followed the project all the way through. So I would take the design, I would code it, I would put the templates together, I'd take the back end, I'd merge it to the front end, I would do the
Was
Q&A
it
testing.
Dreamweaver? What tool did you
No,
use?
you could use Dreamweaver, but no, I used straight old home site. I was
Oh,
just a straight hand hard coder.
no
Yeah,
Notepad. Wow.
no tools. Yeah, no tools. I hated the tools. So I got to be very good at front end coding and design, and then I added accessibility a few years later. And then I was working at moved here to Las Vegas when the market crashed after the dot com bust. Spent 2 years in the DC area. Sorry, backtrack a little bit. Before I moved here, well, I came from DC area. I spent 2 more years after the dot com bust. I came here and was working for a government position remote, and then they terminated the position, not me, but the position itself. And so I found a job at a Vegas hotel travel site, and I was doing their microsites and working with the development group on the
Mhm.
back end and stuff. And somebody was doing SEO for us and not doing a very good job. And my boss said if I could figure out why one of our new sites hadn't been indexed in 6 months, that she'd let me move over and try SEO. So
Mhm.
I found the no index tag, on the site, and they had been paying this company $20,000 a month to do SEO on a site that wasn't indexed in Google uh, for 6 months. And this is back in the day when there was like the myth of like the sandbox and stuff. So she said, you know what, you can't do any worse. And so if you want to do SEO, and I'd been asking her for a while if I could try, she let me start. So I cut my teeth on the Las Vegas hotel travel industry.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how did you come out? Okay, you are one of the most sought after speaker, author that I can I can understand how you did it just by hustling, right? But how did you get that reputation of being this last resort? The we get when hell break loose, like okay, you got to call Kristine. She's the cleaner, right?
Well, I think that, well, a couple of things. One, I was very fortunate in this industry where I think men sometimes get an unfair reputation. Because when I started in the industry, it was mostly male, and they opened a lot of doors for me. They invited me into their groups to meet up at conferences, to write, to speak, things like that. So I got in with a group of SEOs that knew a lot. And back in the day when we're talking like where there's Bozer and the hardcore black hatters who in the US. And so I learned a lot from them. I'm technical by nature. I was developing websites in development groups up until 2011 with companies, inside the company. So I think I just have a good technical background, and then I'm very analytical. I did everything but my dissertation for a PhD, so I have a lot of academic background on how to research and how to, figure out the puzzles. So I think if you put that together with the amount of the great people that I learned from in the industry, I think that's combined.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever go to the dark side? Because if you hang out with Black Hat.
I did not, but I learned a lot to protect my sites from Black Hat. So, and I don't have any, don't get me wrong. I know there are white hats or gray hats, whatever we call ourselves, that are like, oh, Black Hat's bad. I don't think Black Hat's bad. It's a tool in the industry that people use to rank websites. It's just something Google doesn't like. But for myself, I like playing the game inside the rules, because to me, when I win that way, then I feel like I've really accomplished something, because I've made like I have a site yesterday on this update that went up 89% and in traffic, and I don't know for sure yet if it's going to hold. We'll wait until the rollout's done, but they're trying to recover from a core update, and that feels like a big win for me, because the client now, they're 89% up from where they're actually 100% up. They're 89% on this update, 40% on another update. So I like that. I like that win, and I like working with the client that way. So I respect the Black Hat art. I think it's fascinating enough so that an affiliate SEO got me to going to DEF CON, the hacker conference, like a decade ago. And I go every year. This year, unfortunately, it's canceled because of COVID, but I go every year, and I'm always blown away by the way that their minds work. Like, this isn't just Black Hat, obviously, this is hackers, but the way they see the exploits. And I'm like, that's so bad what you're doing, but it's so brilliant. I can't even be upset that they're doing that. But I learned a lot to be able to help protect websites from the attacks. So a lot of times, if there's like a negative SEO attack, someone might have me take a look at it, because they know that I know a lot about it. I don't know everything, obviously. I'm not a hacker, but I know enough hackers that if I don't know, I can ask them. So yeah, so I find it fascinating. I love learning about it. It's just not how I practice my skill as an SEO.
Do you know the book The Prince by Machiavelli?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's what you did. Is the book? Everybody thinks that it's a book to practice evil. Well, no, it's for the good prince to learn the evil, because otherwise the good prince is gonna get his head chopped off.
Yeah.
So that's basically what you did, is to learn evil, to know to do good. I think I always like to beat the machine, but I'd never really needed to use Black Hat for revenues to make money out of Black Hat SEO. Um, so it's more, just I call myself a search engine hacker. I
I
like
like
to,
that.
and I figured out what does Google want. I figured out my way of doing SEO. It works. There is only one question mark: do you have the time or the money, the resource to? But there's no real mystery anymore. What's your point on that? Because we are in the middle of a core update, meaning ranking signals supposedly changed, modified. But I feel like the game is over. I mean, at least from my point of view, the way I'm doing things, it just keeps on getting better every time. What's are you still trying to fight the algorithm, chase the algorithm, or for you is it the SEO game is over? You figure it out, and there's nothing else to discover.
Well, there's always something new in how it works.
Yeah, sorry. Let me rephrase. Not to discover, but how to achieve results. How to
Yeah.
rank.
Yeah. I think sometimes I would feel like when I would be in groups like with other SEOs, like I'm kind of basic. Like I go for what I know the algorithm does. I try to make the site the best version of what I think the algorithms are looking for based on research I've done. And then that's the fixes I make. It's not exciting. It's not like particularly like game changing for a lot of people, but it works. I've never had a site that
It's
I've
it.
done ever get
Yeah.
hit by an algorithm update, and I've recovered
Yeah.
every site uh, that I've that had an algorithm devaluation that's come to me, unless they didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to me. I can't help them, but so I'm just a solid. I think I'm just a solid SEO. I understand the intricacies of how it works. I listen to other people who do research I don't do. Like I talk to other forensic technical SEOs like Alan Bleiweiss and Jenny. I can never say Jenny's last name; she's gonna kill me. But Hallis. Um, and we compare notes on how we think the algorithms are working and what is fixing broken sites. So, but I always find it interesting because it's like a puzzle. The puzzle shifts a little here and shifts a little there, maybe a big
Mm-mm.
shift, and then finding out what works and what doesn't work. Because I do a lot of site audits and recoveries. I get to push the meter a
Mm-mm.
lot, and I push the levers when I'm recovering a site to find out what is still working. So I think that's
Mm-mm.
interesting, but it's not like when I first started where everything was like exciting because like, oh, that does this works and that works, and oh, that's so cool and that's so cool because I've done it so long. I think you probably have the same inclination.
Yeah, we have a lot of similar. Yeah, the photography, the passion for making images, and the nerdy aspect of always trying to dig into the
Yeah.
machines, get into the matrix. But yeah, also having, I feel at peace with my way of doing SEO. Like you said, yeah, it's not very sexy. There's no big secrets. There's no magic tricks. But the only question mark for me, yep, do you have the time and or the money to? Do you have the? Yeah, you have ambitions. You want to be, but we can estimate that it's gonna take that much time and or that much money. Can you do it or not? And I can. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure for yourself, you can guarantee results, but you can't guarantee results for your clients. But you can guarantee that you give them the right tools, les bons moyens, the right means. You guarantee that the means do you give? Yeah, is that the right word? Means?
Yeah, I
No.
think so. I never guarantee a result just because, of course, we never know what Google's going to do. I never tell a client, I 100% know this is going to work. I know in my heart and head that it's 100% most likely to work, but I manage expectations and I'm like, we make these changes, you should see a big change on the next update or the next amount of weeks from fixing something. And I give them the right tools to do that, like you're saying, the means to do that. And I work with their developers or I work with their content team or whoever happens to be to make sure that we have what's on the
Mm-hmm.
site necessary. Ian Laurie had uh, he wrote an article about close to perfect, and that's really the only goal of an SEO is to get the site as close to perfect, meaning what we know about the algorithms as fitting to those algorithms as possible, and then just let Google do its thing. So, like you said, it's not particularly sexy, but it's like if you're a marathon runner, you run every day, you eat right, it's not a big surprise. Like,
Uh,
you
uh,
may,
practice,
yeah, you
practice.
may know a little trick here or there to like cut a little off your
Mm,
time, but
mm,
it's not
mm.
like a big secret on how you run 25 miles, 26 miles.
Yeah, but I feel like I could guarantee the results from my own sites, but you say, okay, we are not sure about Google, but also it's not your website, it's not your
Yeah, that's
company.
true.
There are some points that you can
Yeah.
control. Well, if it was your website, your company, I'm pretty sure you could guarantee your results. And I'm pretty sure when you test something, either you know
Yeah.
in advance now at your level that the test is going to work or not work even before you put it out. Even if we have a lot of surprises, Google, it's an algorithm. It has bugs, right? Sometimes
It's like that too. Yeah.
it's like it's like the Bermuda Triangle. Sometimes like the site is in between some filters or something. It's just like, but the the recovery part. What's your record from a not algorithmic penalty, a manual penalty? How fast were you to recover the
That's
site?
more
How
on
quick?
Google manual actions, right? Like if you do a schema penalty, I've had it where the site's recovered before I get the email that they've taken the penalty off. And more that's usually related to the featured snippet loss from a schema loss, but not 100%. They do get some other losses. I in the history of working on algorithms, I would say the hardest one was there was a hidden manual action, which was it wasn't a
Mm.
manual action that Google's ever published. And at the time, they also had a penguin. They had two manual actions, a penguin. They were out of
Oof.
the search results. They were down like 700 points on the search results. They had bought links. They had done everything spammy you could do, and it was in the loan space, right? So they came to us, and I had a partner at the time, and he did the link side. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I do everything that the manual action says is wrong. We fix it. I send in the reconsideration request, and they're like, nope, there's still something wrong with the site, and they didn't give any links or any pages, which now they don't do sometimes, but back then they always did. You always would get some page examples.
Mm,
And
mm.
I went and did a screaming frog crawl, and it pulled back all the alt text and looked in it, and they had put keyword stuffed and paragraph stuffed all the alt text on 8,000 images. And so I'm like,
Oh,
I don't know of any manual action for this, but let's remove this and we'll go back and reapply. And it did, it came off. So that was probably the longest. That
nice,
one took
nice one.
about that one took about 3 4 months because we had to do the two submissions. Uh, and then I had one
Mm-hmm.
about a year and a half ago. That it took about 2 months, but it was also during Christmas when they kind of halt everything. So as soon as
Mm.
that little space where they claim they're not going to update anything.
Do,
So
do you really believe they still do
yeah,
that? Because that was back in the days after
yeah,
Florida.
I
But
do.
do you really think they stop it?
Through,
I'm not
yeah, I
sure.
think so only because of how this action works. So I was working with a commerce company, e-commerce, who had a problem on the
Mm.
site, and they were hesitant, and they took a while to fix it. And like, we're gonna get hit for this if you don't fix it. Well, we did get hit for it 3 weeks before Black Friday on $1 billion e-commerce site. So yeah,
Oof.
so I immediately put in a reconsideration request because I knew that would halt the dampening effect given the
Uh-uh.
brand name of this site. Um, so it came back, but it took it like till the last day of shipping to get back to us about the manual action. And then they
Okay.
removed it the last week of the month in December. So I still think it's
Uh-uh.
possible. Like we did get dampened that week, but we'd been doing the fixes in between. And then I put the reconsideration request in, but for 3 weeks nothing happened. And then the last week when everything's closed down pretty much, it
Mm-mm.
recovered. So yeah, that was a crazy one.
Okay. So despite being the queen of penalty recoveries,
There are other people that I don't want to make it sound like I'm like the best. I'm in a group of very, very good, accomplished people, but I would say that we all share similar abilities. So
but what else do you dig in this work? What kind of project do you like to work on?
It depends. I did a 9-month embed down at Zappos, which was really challenging, but because they have no managers. So I had to do all these site fixes and recoveries internally without a management team to work with, and get buy-in and get things done. So that was interesting. Um, I do mom and pops that are struggling. I think I just like it if I either believe in the brand or I believe in the owner.
Right.
So I'll do like a small site, if I believe that they're doing good things. A chiropractor I used to work with when I very first started contacted me the other day, and it's not a big client, but he does good work and he does good things for the community. And so if I can help him out, that'd be great. And so I feel like I have to a little bit of a feeling of a purpose to it. I always tell
Mhm.
people that as an SEO, we all stand between people getting hired and fired. And if I feel I can make an impact on that and protect people's jobs by making the site do better and do well, then that's the kind of project I like. I like the tough ones because for me, I know what's going on, but the company doesn't. And also, I can get big gains that look good. So
Yeah, we're gonna get into that, the whole problem of this mystery box of SEO and how Google might not really be helping people to understand better SEO. But first, let's go into the myth urban legends. What are your pet peeves?
let's see. Well, if you ask any SEO, LSI does not exist. Latent semantic indexing. That's old. Um, I have a little bit of a pet peeve right now on the information that's going out around the core updates. So
Wait, hold on. Let's just pause. Let's go back to LSI because I traced it. You know what happened? Google bought a company called Applied Semantics, which is specialized in LSA, LSI, so latent semantic analysis, latent semantic indexing. And this is where the magic of SEO works, of the magic of SEO myth. Is yes, Google bought that company. So people say, okay, if Google bought that company, they're going to put LSI or LSA into the search, but they didn't read the end of the of the sentence. Yeah, it's LSA LSI for advertising, and that's at the core of something called AdSense. So there is LSI and LSA in Google AdSense.
yeah, and if you read the document, so I did some talks on Google's change of language, and so I read about 80 of their documents and their research in the Google research group on how they were developing that. And so LSI was something that in the very, very brief period in Google, they tried to use in organic search, but I don't know for what or for how long or for, it was very brief though. It wasn't, but it was, but
Mhm.
this is related to the myth portion. There was a guy who's still an SEO, but he just went dark on everybody after what happened. And I won't use names here, but years ago, he challenged LSI. He was a mathematician and an SEO. He was trying to put together a real peer reviewed research journal for SEO. And he published his results that LSI was not anything, the math
Mhm.
that was used to prove LSI existed was wrong. And it should have just been an academic debate, but he got attacked pretty brutally because it was a very prominent SEO that was saying it existed, and a lot of people didn't know him that well. And he was really just trying to do good work. He was trying to literally create a
Mhm.
research journal, a real research, not like the research that goes around now, like
Mhm.
define variables and testing a null hypothesis, all that kind of stuff. And he just disappeared from the industry. He said he was out, and it's unfortunate that
Wow.
sometimes um, the myth giver has so much
Mhm.
prominence that it gets swooped up, and people don't listen to the people that can debunk it.
Yeah, the I mean, I like this algorithm. I think it's very interesting. But the way people are using it for SEO is just
Yeah,
wrong. So
yeah,
it doesn't
exactly,
exist, like you say.
exactly.
So let's go into this core update. What's the deal? What's the urban legend around it?
Well, there's a lot of I don't know if it's myth yet because it's only been about a year and a half, but there is a lot of writing about things like Google's looking at content accuracy. But then Google comes out and says, no, we're not looking at that. And I agree with them. The scale of having to look at content accuracy would be impossible. Like, you'd have to have a fact check against everything that anyone published, and that changes every minute of every day, especially in science, health, that kind of thing. So it's not even scalable. But someone found one research paper, like you're saying, where they looked for facts in this research paper and didn't get to the portion in the research paper where the researcher said this is not scalable. Like, yes, we were able to somewhat produce more factual results, but it's not scalable, can never be used. It requires too much processing. It can't be done at the size that Google exists at. So that's one thing. Then there's another, like, Google looks at authorship. Well, I get where that came from, because Google Plus did have authorship, because Google Plus was an identity project, not a search project. But once they got rid of Google Plus, they don't have information. They have entity information on authors, but I'm not an author in Google entity search. If you, with people have, those APIs set up, you search for me, it doesn't come up that I'm an author. So I write, but would Google now devalue an SEO site because I wrote and I wasn't the entity author? No, they wouldn't do that. And they say that. So a lot of people got the quality raters guide, which is really just dumbing down the algorithms for the quality raters so that they can rate the algo changes, as I'm sure you know. And they took what's in there, EAT, expertise, authority, and trust, and decided that everything in there was a ranking factor. And it's not. So companies will come to me. I had a bunch of doctors after Ungagged LA come to me after. I'd like, it was 3 or 4 come after a talk I gave. And they're like, one's like, I spent 20,000. Another's like, I spent 30,000. And they all rewrote all their content, paying doctors to rewrite it, because they were told they had to have somebody with doctor credentials to write all their content, which they didn't. Google wasn't looking at that. And then Google came out and said, we're not looking at that. So the core ranking update isn't, everyone's trying to make it like a conspiracy, like conspiracy theories are, it's like, oh, it's all this stuff and it's all these things. And it's like, no, it's simple. It's like a virus transmits the way a virus transmits. It's basic science. Core updates are core ranking factors that they're tweaking to get some result that Google desires. We don't know exactly what it is, but when I've tweeted to someone like Danny or Martin, they have said, when I've said, is this to try to get a more accurate query match or an accurate search result that way? And they're like, yes. So it's basically just core ranking factors that people need to look at. Technical and query relevance is important too. But it's not any of these things that people are having, putting into these articles where it's like all this intricate stuff that Google's never talked about. And so it bothers me because people are wasting money. And these are people that after a core update, you don't have a core update issue. You don't usually lose 20% or 10% of your traffic. You lose 80%, 90%. I've never seen anybody with less than 50 to 60% loss. They don't have the money and time to be spending $20,000 on content for their site to be written by an expert that's known, because Google's not looking at any of that, So they come to me and they're like, why didn't my site recover? And I have to tell them the hard news, and that is none of those are ranking factors. The things we have to fix, we'll do an audit, we'll fix them, and all those sites have come back. So,
did you see the last patent shared by our friend Bill? Because now they are looking at vectors, and supposedly they are trying to analyze your style, right? You have a writing style, and they can try to figure out that. But it's, you could have different writing styles, right? Depending on where you write. So and different editors. So it makes it's still experimental, and I'm sure they want to do it because it would be a big treasure to put. I call it the person rank, right? The page rank on somebody's, and not on the author, on anybody. That's and maybe Facebook is more ahead on that than them. They have more data useful to profile someone than Google actually. Google is pretty limited on the scope of what they see. Oh well, they have Google Chrome. Yeah, that's true. They can see everything.
Well, no, they're still limited though. You're right. And Bill's amazing. He does amazing analysis of patents. But he even says in everything that he writes, this is a patent. It doesn't mean that they're using it. And a patent can just be because they don't want someone else to use it. They might
Exactly.
have hit on something they think's interesting, and they're going to need 10 years to develop it, but let's get a patent on it now so we can protect it. So I think that writing style would be a very hard one. Like you just said, like you use different styles with different audiences. Plus, if you look at how I write an academic paper versus how I write an article, they're completely different. They're very different verbiage, very different sentence structures. And then my editors are very different. I've had editors who edit very little and keep my voice intact, but make me sound really good. I've had editors who take out big chunks of what I write. So I don't know how you could do an author signature without a lot of other information on just writing. I don't think that was very
True.
effective.
And let's remind everybody that Google doesn't, it's not words, it's vectors,
Yeah,
right?
and so people understand, because I know you know what it means, but with Google, when it moved from strings to things, it had basically a database of known nouns. Of entity is just a noun, and those entities they put a mathematical number to, put them in a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph has vectors where those words go, and then they assign relationships through the nodes, the connections. So they know apples and oranges are often used together. If you looked at the time when I first tested it, this long time ago, would probably not be valid today. But I looked up iced tea versus iced black tea versus iced Rubio's tea. Well, nobody really searches for iced Rubio's tea. It's usually a hot tea. So when I did that, I got back very few results on just iced tea. Like I got a whole bunch of different things. This is when
Mhm.
RankBrain first came out. And so that's how it works. And those vector relationships show distance between relationships. So if I put out an article out with all the Marvel uh, comic characters in it, I don't ever mention Marvel. Google knows that's Marvel Comics because all those are together with other types of entities that tell it this is about this topic. But
Mhm.
it's very complex in that those relationships are all designated by those nodes, which is really kind of a network theory, like human network theory. It's kind of similar. And I'm sorry, hopefully I'm not rambling, but uh,
No, but who is in relation to what and why? And um, I'm very good at reverse engineering people. And when you know that Amit Singhal, who is the one who really made
yeah,
Google, right? I mean, Larry Page disagreed, kind of did something, but Amit Singhal really was the one who rewrote the PageRank and really anti-spam, blah, blah, blah. And he was, I don't know how you say in English, Thésard, the student of the Professor Salton, the Salton cosinus, which is about the distance between two entities. So if Amit Singhal was the student of Professor Salton, well, it makes sense that he went that
yes,
way
exactly,
to build a search engine.
exactly.
And then the way even if I'm not engineer, even if I don't know how to count, it's not that difficult because it's not really high level as far as what we need to understand. The conversation, let me rephrase. Dixon Jones, who is crawling the web with
Right.
Majestic, see a lot of things that we don't. So he's saying, okay, you guys can reverse engineer what you see, but you have no clue like about what I see from the back office of Majestic. But the good news is we don't need to see all the rest. The little we can reverse engineer is enough to achieve results. But you are one of the rare person who can really go beyond the obvious. Who can I don't know. Maybe it's because your brain is. How do you figure out what you can't see? You know, how do you go beyond the obvious?
Well, part of that comes from my academic background. I mean, I'm a sociologist by education, which sociology is the study of humans, but it's a very inexact set of variables, right? You can't put a human in
Mhm.
and another human in a room and have them interact and go there. That's how it works, right? So it's a very inferred
Mhm.
type of social science, and it's very similar to the search results. You're looking for patterns and anomalies. So a lot of people will look at its face and go, well, I looked at this website and it dropped and it must be because of X. And I'm like, that's not really a ranking factor. These are the variables we know. what changed, what made the variables different, what's the invisible variable. And you find that usually in the outliers and the anomalies that happen. So to bring it down to like real world, I was working with a client site who I looked in their Google Search Console, and they had the fourth keyword referrer was 4 letters. The 4 letters aren't a product name that I knew of, but they had a lot of products. So I go to the site and I search product name, doesn't exist. I'm like, well, that's really weird. Why is this our fourth referrer? And I go and I put it in Google and I find out it's a porn site. And yeah,
Oh, nice.
and I pointed it out to some other people on the team, and nothing against them. They're not forensic SEOs. They don't look at it the same way I do. And I think I learned a lot of this from talking to hackers, right? And and they're like, well, we've seen that there for like forever. We just thought it was just a product. And I have a natural like curiosity on things that don't make sense. So, and it's a good and a
Got
bad
it.
thing, right? Because I can go down a rabbit hole on anything that doesn't make sense to me
Yeah.
until I figure out what makes sense. But so I went and looked it up, and then I'm like, well, they must have. We have 60,000 visits from this term. Why would we have 60,000
Mm.
visits on a porn site? Well, I go and do some research. I'm like, we must have had a vulnerability, and without asking the infosec team, because I didn't know if they'd tell me the straight up answer or not, I start doing research. Yes, they had an XSS vulnerability, and they had just shut it down. It was public knowledge. I shut it down the month I
Uh-oh.
started. So then I go back and look, and yeah, the visits stopped the day that they put out the fix on the XSS
Uh-oh.
attack, right? And so then I
Nice
take
one.
that to the infosec team, and I had a really great lead infosec. He was really great. And I said, guys, you've had this on the site for like as far back as 15 years. And they're like, yeah.
Wow.
And they knew that it had an excess vulnerability in 2012 because they had something bad happen, and they didn't fix it. And I don't know why they didn't fix it. And this was a new infosec team, but there was a couple guys that had been on a
Uh-oh.
really long time. And one of the guys is like, that's not possible. And the lead looks at him and goes, oh yeah, yeah, it is. And he's right. So, but the long story short is that led me to finding 13 million Russian porn spam links. That led me to finding that they had
Uh-huh.
an open search box, and the search box would let you type in anything and create a page, and that those words would go into the title, the description, the
Uh-huh.
H1 tag, and create the URL. So now I
Nice
did a
one.
search, and it was a single page app, so they couldn't do an inventory of pages. Now I had to try to
Uh-huh.
find all the pages that they may have created, and found that we were selling all sorts of things like sex toys and Mozilla downloads, and so that's how my brain works. So it's looking for the anomaly, looking for what doesn't fit, and then following that path, and that usually takes me to where there's the problem. And I think that also goes back to why I'm the SEO of last resort, because my brain works that way. I
Mhm.
think I look at things differently. So when everyone's looked at it from a straight SEO perspective, I'm going to turn it, 45 or 90 degrees and look at it from a different angle.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. But also maybe because I mean we started back in the days and we didn't have all the tools that we have today. We didn't have Screaming Frog. We had like a little shitty crawler called Xenu and
I
or
remember.
whatever. Uh, but you had to put yourself in like Google Bot mode, right? You had to think like, okay, I'm Google Bot and I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna okay first HTTP headers, then robot.txt, then blah blah blah. Um, and I think it's a tremendous advantage because a tool, if you just press a button on our friends are SMrush or Screaming Frog or whatever tool you use, but you don't know what you want, it's not going to go very far.
Yeah, no, I agree. Screaming Frog, I think, is a little different because you have to know what you're looking for or at in Screaming Frog. But it was funny. I didn't know Screaming Frog existed. I didn't start using it from day one. And I was doing all these, like you were, like crawling a little bit with Xeno, like looking at pages by hand, looking at their code. And someone's like, why aren't you using Screaming Frog? I'm like, Screaming what? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best tool ever. Because I'm doing like large sites.
Yeah, it saves a lot of
Yeah,
time.
yeah. But, but
But you need to set it up. If you don't set it up
true.
right,
And you're right on the other reporting tools though. Like SiteBulb's amazing in what it reports. Like it gives you little blurbs on what's wrong, and then it links you to an answer. And if you don't know SEO that well, you can still create a report out of that and charge somebody for it. But it doesn't mean you're going to help them effectively recover from whatever's wrong with the site, because it may bring back 95 hints that are wrong. And those 95 hints, maybe 10 of them will really actually move the needle. And so you have to know the difference. So you're very right. And someone asked, like, how do you know how to hire a technical SEO? And on a call with somebody, and one of the people goes, ask them if they can use Screaming Frog. I was like, that's actually a really good point, because the other tools you just put in the URL and you let it crawl, right?
Yeah,
But Screaming Frog, you do have to know how to set up, and you do know how to interpret the data that it brings back. So I find that, and I don't
true.
use many of the more powerful tools unless the company's already paying for it, because I do a lot of stuff on 10 million, 20 million page sites, and those tools all charge by 100,000. So I can't
Well,
go to a
yeah,
client and
true.
go, and because I'm doing recoveries, I can't just do a sample audit. I have to know the entire site. I have to see the whole picture. So
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. And also sometimes it's not on the technical side. Could be content, could be links, could be I feel like the technical aspect of it really changed from back in days where, and you said it yourself before, you had to help index the website. I was not indexing well, and now it's the opposite. You gotta stop the site to index too well. It's kind of reverse of what we were doing back then. But now I feel like it's just like you put the coin in a video game. Then you got to play the game, and the game you don't win with the technical aspect of the. You just got to be
We'll
this. This
debate
is just the
there. We'll
beginning.
debate there. I do a lot of
No, what I'm saying is, if you are bad, of course, if you have, but to be good is just doing your job. To have a site that's fast, that's responsive, that welcomes well that respects the user, it's just doing the job. I think that I understand what you want to say, but I feel like people invest so much money on the technical aspect, and they forget that well, it's just the beginning. It's you have to be. It's just doing your job. Then you got to be remarkable at content and so on and so on. Uh, but the tech, I don't know. What's your take on it? As far as the power of technical
I
SEO.
find the power of technical SEO is very high. Like this is a few years ago, but I had a site that had a 30-second average page load time. We got them under 10 seconds. That's the only thing we fixed. 3 months later, on an update, they went up 200,000 visits a day. And they held that about 80% for 6 weeks until they started putting all the ads back on the site, because this was a page speed thing. And I came in and it was down one day and then down the next day and then down the third day in a row. And I'm like, I get on a Slack and I'm like, did you guys do something on the site? Because it's 10 million page site. There's no way for me to see everything. Like, yeah, we were doing so well. We put all those ads back on the site. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, you know that 80,
Yeah, but
80% boost that we got, you just lost 40% of it. And then they fixed it over after 6 hours of arguing on Slack. They fixed it, and then 2 weeks later they're like, why aren't we back? And I go, oh, it doesn't work that way. Like, you got an update and that gave you the big boost. This was right when Panda and Penguin went like real time, so I don't know if it was one of those that had something to do with it. But um technical, the way I look at it is the first thing, because developers, one, are usually under resourced and overtaxed, so they don't usually do the best code. They would like to do the best code, but they can't do the best code because they've got, a VP over them is telling them you got to get this out, or it's a small mom and pop and they don't know the difference. Either way, if you can't index and crawl properly, then it doesn't matter the rest of what you do. If you're not fast, it doesn't matter the rest of what you do, because Google can't crawl your site well, can't index it well. Then it's not something that your content can fix. So don't get me
yeah,
wrong. The other
but
things are really, really important, but the first thing is technical. You have to make sure the technical is
that's what
good,
I'm
the page
saying.
speed is good. Then move into content, site architecture, links, queries, how are the queries matching, keyword research. But a lot of SEOs, you see it all the time in groups, will argue page speed isn't that important, even though it is a ranking factor. Now, John will come out on Twitter like he did the other day and say, or Gary, one of the two, it's negligible. It doesn't make a big difference. Well, every site I've fixed the page speed on, where they were over like 10 or 11 seconds on a full load, went like pretty good recovery. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. It's probably my broken French, my broken English that didn't come across well. What I'm saying is, okay, let's say it's just, to me, it's just the beginning. Is you have to have a website that is fast, that is good, that is accessible for the boat, that has a good architecture. But this is just the first step. All the cases you're talking about is just not, they are not doing the job properly. But if I've seen so many people investing in SEO audits again and again and again, but they don't invest in content and links, um, well, nothing is going to
Agree.
happen. If you got an empty shelf, empty shelf, pas shelf, empty shell, fast and but it's crap inside. There was it was not a cook. He was just a critique who was saying, if you freeze shit, you're gonna unfreeze shit.
This is true. I don't think it changes in the freezer.
Exactly. So if your website is just a scraper of classified and has no value, the content is just duplicated from other stuff on the web. And if you're fast enough, okay, let's say you load in five seconds. Well, to go from 5 to 2 is gonna be very hard, or to change or to fill in all your alt, or to change all your H3 and H2, or do whatever you want. Your content is still thin content, or even just no value content. So I feel like I don't know how to translate ingrat. It's um, it's just the technical part is yeah, no, I don't have the word in English, but it's a job that is so difficult because, like you said, we are just trying to fix things. We're just it's a big mess. If we have to thank Google for something at that, and you know that it's a little bit less of a mess than before, but they still bring on stuff that, like React.js. Okay, Flash is gone, but now it's React.js, and they keep on making things complicated. If it was an ideal world, if the SEO had was the head of everything, it would be perfect. But you have technical limits and you have marketing priorities that are gonna block the perfect SEO world. Sometimes you can't go all the way to where you want because that's the way the website is. If you got some Magento, for example, well, you can't you can't externalize the JavaScript. I mean, it's just not gonna work. Or you can't. You got limitations that make it very hard for technical SEO to be perfect. Well, if you had it your way, if you were starting from, instead of being the one who recover, if you were at the beginning and you had your way of saying, okay, this is how I want things to be done, it would be a whole very different web.
Yeah, 100%. I find that, and unfortunately, you would think that enterprise clients would be the ones to get that the most, but they get it the least. So I worked with a big brand, billion-dollar brand, who was launching 2 sub-brands, and they were paying influencers all this money to like talk about their product and whatever. And I'm like, what about the SEO portion? They're like, oh, we're not worried about that. And I'm like, but you're doing all this influencer market. It's going to get all these links, but you don't have anywhere to put the links right now. You don't have a common website for it. You're doing this before the websites are launched, a long time before they're launched. I'm like, you sure you don't care about SEO? And they're like, yeah, we don't care about SEO. Like, okay. And then I heard about a year later, they're like, no, we actually do care about that. And it's not necessarily like anyone's fault inside a company, but it's just that SEO is often considered this add-on feature. Like, we'll do it later.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and they don't understand that every SEO isn't just content. A lot of businesses think SEO content, links, titles, that's it. Then you're done. And it's like, no, SEO has page layout algorithms, has page speed algorithms, mobile, mobile first. So you have to know all those things as you're developing the site, because if you don't, you have to retrofit. And retrofitting, I always like to equate a website to a house. You build the base for the mansion, even if you're going to only have one room.
Exactly.
And if you're building the one room and I come to you as the SEO consultant a year later because you're not performing, and I go, that one room where you're going to have to add three more, a set of stairs, a pool in the back, and a yard in the front. And they're like, that's a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, but you can't, there's certain hurdles you can't overcome. And if you don't have good content, good architecture, good technical, good links, those would be the four main components, I think. Then I can't do a lot to help you. And if you probably didn't know you needed to talk to us first, but you really should always let the SEO lead the effort.
I remember reading one of your. I couldn't read everything; it would have taken me. But it struck me when you reminded me when Matt Cutts said, "Okay, what about we change SEO, meaning search engine optimizations, to search experience optimization." I thought that was interesting. Tell me your point of view on this search experience optimization instead of search engine
Well,
optimization.
Google's gone through several, what am I trying to say? It's evolution. So when it first was going
Mm,
after what SEOs did, SEOs originally came not as a way to help fix a site, but to spam Google so they could make
mm,
money, right? Which is fine, but that's where it started. And then Matt was the first, I think he was the first spam fighter. And the first set of algorithms came out to just deal with spam. The webmaster guidelines today still are mostly about spam, keyword stuffing and doorway
mm,
pages and redirects and all that. But then they started looking at the usability of a site, the user experience of a site, because Google's product isn't their search results. Google's products are the websites it brings back. So if the sites
true.
aren't usable, or they're covered in ads, or they have whatever myriad of offenses there are out there, then it looks like Google's not a very good search engine, and they might decide to use a different search engine, right? If every experience with the websites they pull back is horrible. So they started focusing on user experience, and they started focusing on like page layout algorithms, page speed, things like that. And I think Matt was very correct. It was user experience optimization, not just search engine optimization, because because that's when they started to render the page and look at the actual page itself. Prior to that, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't do that, right? So that's when they started to do the full page render, look at the page. Now they have the two processes where they, take the straight HTML raw and then they do the render on top of it. So yeah, so I think it was a really good way for him to describe it.
I was really surprised actually that they said that they are doing it on a large scale. I knew that they were doing it on an experimental scale, like that they had some leftover bandwidth, so they would do the rendering thing, and they would do it when you had a site that was hacked. They would do the rendering, but doing it on a large scale, that's very costly, and I don't understand what's the point. Like, uh, why would they need it? Why would they need to do it, considering the extra cost? What's your what do they need to render from a browser perspective? I don't get
Well, I
it.
think it probably solves two issues. One, are you showing something different in the browser than what they get in the code level? So, it's very easy to see if they match up. But also, back when they first started doing page render, that same site I told you about where they had the 8,000 alt text, they had another
Mm,
hidden something was dampening them. And they were a lone site. And the very first thing on the top of the page was this big, contact us box in the loan page.
mm,
And I said, why don't we change the design layout here? Because this isn't very user friendly. Like users don't care about that. Put that down the page. We redesigned the whole site. And then that was about the time that Google said they had a page layout algorithm. Uh, but so that site, we fixed it all, and that helped give them another big boost. But I think for users, Google wants to always says you want to make sure your site's good for users, right? Well, if they can't see the page layout, you can trick in code where things are laid out. I can put the code block
of
at the
course.
bottom and really just display it at the top using the CSS. I can use JavaScript to hide
Mm.
things. I can use JavaScript clicks to hide things. So if they do the page render, they actually see what they're getting, and I think that's probably why.
Yeah, no, I get the point. But knowing the cost, right? And even like the electric bill that at the end of the day that's going to cost. It's not cheap to do that kind of thing. Let's put it this way. Now let's move into the.
Oh wait, before we move on, I wanted to say one thing to that.
Yeah.
I have no proof of this. This is just a hit me when I was working on stuff theory. The core updates, the stuff I'm seeing technically, these sites always had these problems. They're not new, right? So the one site that had 800 redirect loops, that had been on the site for a long time. The site that had the 30-second page load because of the page speed modules, that had been on 5 years. I had a site with a 2-minute load time that had its best traffic ever, average load time. Yeah, wow. Average load time. So I think that for Google, amping up the technical, the page speed, all of those things saves them a lot of money. Because if the sites are easier to crawl, the sites are faster to load, they have less resource calls, et cetera, that greatly, if you're looking at trillions of pages, could be, I don't know exact, I'm not just throwing out number, but it could be $100 million, I'm guessing, right? Because they build new facilities. They even had to create a dam for one of their facilities to redirect the water so they had enough water to cool the facility, right? Like think how much money you have to put into a server farm when you have to put a dam in to get the water. Like, it's not a cheap expense, it's massive. So I think that some of the focus on technical, which is seemingly more recent, that they've been much more hardcore about it, and what I'm seeing in the recoveries is a money decision, is a cost saving decision.
Oh, it's I read, and I can't find it. It's bothering me because I read this scientific paper where the guy made a very nice demonstration that the way Google is built with data centers, computers, it's not like peer-to-peer or blockchain or whatever it could be. There's a physical limitation because the web is so big and it's growing so fast. Then you can't just multiply the data centers to follow up. Well, they have the surfer aléatoire, the random surfer. Is it in English? How you translate surfer aléatoire? The random surfer.
Oh yeah, the random surfer. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so they don't crawl everything all at once, blah, blah, but still, there's some kind of physical limitation to the power to crawl the web. And I see it with the project quant.com, where they started to crawl 8 years ago. It's humongous. The web is humongous. And there's an electric people. Tell us about how you view the difference from an engineer point of view. I mean, you're not from Google, but how do you think they view the search engine compared to the way SEO sees the search engine?
Oh, I'm not sure. How do I see it differently? I think, well, for them, I mean, there's so many different people working on the algorithm, so many different people working on it. I don't even know if one person at this point can even tell you how all of it works together, right? So I think on our side, we're trying to figure out how it all works for our clients. But I don't know if you went to a Google engineer that they could tell you how all the algorithms work or how all the AI works, or I think they're inside the machine. We're outside the machine. We're outside the elephant, looking at the elephant from different angles, and someone's got the trunk and someone's got the tail, and we talk amongst ourselves and we try to put it all together. Whereas I think at Google, as an engineer, you have a specific role that you're attacking, whether it's web spam or quality or that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but.
No, totally. And I 100% agree with you. They work on little bits, and we have. That's why at the beginning I say I think Google SEO better than Googlers themselves, because you figure it out and you understand. Maybe you can't write down the code, right? You can't write down the algorithm, but you got it. You know what and how to feed Google, and that's all that counts. But now let's speak about this love-hate relationship with Google. please lay down and talk to me. Let's. How do you live this? We all have this love-hate relationship. So what's your point
Well,
on
I
that?
mean, it does give me a career that allows me to make more than most people do and to work from home, work with a lot of great people, which is great. I mean, it is probably one of the most fascinating industries, in the world because I'm on a UK Zoom with you in your country and UK and Denmark and Iceland and Australia and we all come from different
Hmm.
walks of life and we all have different skills. A lot of us are very creative and musical or artistic or photography. So, but with so you got to love all of that created by Google. Um, I think sometimes Google mistakes people at Google mistake issues with Google as personal these days. Like if I critique Google, I'm
Hmm.
not critiquing John or Gary or Martin, the
Hmm.
public facing people in the United States for Google. I'm critiquing Google. Like this update that they ran this past week, the core update in the United States right now, small businesses can't get their loans from the government because big companies swoop them all up. So they're starting to get them out. But if you're a small business that's been shut for 2 months right now, and you have no loans, and you've been making have no business, and you're holding on by a thread, waking up this week to 70% traffic loss on whatever you were doing online is devastating. And I think sometimes Google is tone deaf to the damage that they cause and I'll see like someone from
Hmm.
Google like tweet out like, "Oh, all those spam sites, everyone's all upset about." And I'm like, "No, the site that you hurt that I'm working with is a mom and pop, 40 years in business, or
Hmm.
a disabled man whose disabled wife he supports through his online business." I think a lot of times Google as a company is a little tone deaf to the damage that they can do, and especially with these updates because in the history of Google, most updates might shift you 20, 30%, right? And and some of your keywords. But these updates are devastating. There's 70% traffic
Yeah.
loss. You wake
Yeah.
up and then the next day
Yeah.
you're gone, or on two updates, you're gone, right? Like
Hmm.
over a couple months.
Hmm.
But why? They're not violating the Google terms of service. They're not violating the webmaster guidelines. These are the sites I've recovered are like technical issues and query shifts and
True.
and that's
True.
where I have a problem with them right now. And when they had Penguin, I wrote an ethics of Penguin article because Penguin took
Yeah.
so.
I
Oh,
read that. I
thank.
read it.
But Penguin took so long to update, and you couldn't recover without the update. 2 years the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Horrible.
and you couldn't move to a
Horrible.
new site because they followed you. If they knew it was your site, it would follow you
Hmm.
and kill the second site. So what were those business owners to do? They didn't know they hired a bad SEO that bought links and gave them a shady
Hmm.
profile. And I feel like that on this one. And then that's when you get into the love hate thing. It's like I wrote on Twitter the other day. Do any other SEOs feel that running this update was a particularly awful week to do it? And some are like, "Would some sites went up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great, but they still could have done that in 2 weeks. That wouldn't have made a big difference." Because one of my clients is getting a recovery out of it, right? Um, but they've already
Hmm.
been down for a while. They've already adapted to being down. The fact that they came out this week with another devastating update, according to clients, I don't have anybody that lost, but I mean, according to other SEOs, um, I have problems with that. I have problems with the fact that Google is often tone deaf to the business owners that rely on them for their income. And I think my mom had COPD in the last years of her life, and she ran a $55,000 a year
Wow.
online business with oxygen on her nose. Right? Yeah,
Really?
she's tough. Yeah, she's
Unbelievable.
tough. But she didn't have a site that Google could affect. She was using Amazon and eBay and all that. But I just
Hmm.
thought like every time like the Penguin rollout, that was when she was alive. Or if it had been like now, she's one of those people that could get devastated by these updates, and that's her only income. That 55,000 a year she was making on selling belt buckles because no one sells them in stores anymore. It's pretty genius, right?
Nice.
But she's
That's
like on
cool.
her oxygen with COPD, 30% lung capacity, making $55,000 a year online. And I don't think Google often connects that when they do these things, that those are the people that they hurt too. This isn't about web spam
True.
anymore. Like these updates aren't about web
True.
spam. And so that's where I have the difficulty. And I have a problem that now that Google's kind of created this, we want to have like buddies with a lot of SEOs that if you critique that, you'll often, like 5, 10 years ago, other SEOs were like, yeah, like Google, think about this, right? But now you got kind of, you'll get attacked. I got jumped on the other day for tweeting. Wasn't this probably the worst time to do this? And somebody went off on me on Twitter, another SEO, about, well, if you want to be the one who always hates Google. And I'm like, I don't always hate Google. I tweet out compliments when Google does
Mhm.
well, and I critique them when I think they've done bad. And I think as an SEO, my allegiance is to my client, and I should be doing that. I should be criticizing or critiquing Google when I think they've done something that harms people in a way that Google may not have thought of. Anyway, that's pretty long, but
No, we spoke about it. Was it, yeah, yesterday actually? Where back in the, we miss Matt Cutts because he knew how to draw
yeah,
the line, and it's just not right the way communication. And I could understand that these guys love the fame and and the whole ass kissing thing, but not. I don't care. I'm on the blacklist, though. Whatever, guys. It's just not my thing. I think it's totally wrong. You agree 100%. It's not a healthy relationship. Google needs to draw the line. It's Google. They don't have to be buddies with SEOs. They have to stay in their place, and to say, okay, this guy is legit just because why? you know. You need to
no,
pause.
no, 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 no. I'm good. I just had to show my
Okay.
notes.
Yeah, the and let's speak about, okay. The last time I got very pissed was this rel prev thing. The
Yeah,
rel prev, when they say use that, and then some random tweet from Gary Alves, I think, or I don't know who, years later say, oh, by the way, it never worked. We were never able to take it into account. What kind of communication is that? You put something in place, it doesn't work, and you don't tell anybody. Come on, guys.
well, I also think if we put everything that Gary and John said in the last 5 years doesn't work, there'd be no algorithms. It's just like willy nilly, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, I'm sure that's coming internally from people
Mm.
outside. That they're the communicators. They're not the people creating the. Like Matt was the one who actually created
Well,
algorithm.
he was in Mountain
Yeah,
View,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's the one thing I do miss about Matt, because Matt always gave warnings about something coming, like a year, like you had a
Sure.
year, and then he would hit a big site, like, hey guys, we weren't joking, like we're gonna hit this big site, like Overstock one time
Mm.
and BMW another time. Yeah, and
W,
then they're
yeah.
back in like 2 or 3 days. Like Google doesn't destroy, but that told every smaller site or other site that, hey, we're serious. You better fix this.
Mm.
And then it would still be like 3 or 4 months. And then he would post, hey guys, this we posted this today. It affects this part of the algorithm. This many queries. So you knew where to look. On these core updates right now, it's like, oh, you can't fix anything. You're just not as relevant, and there's nothing you can do. And you're like, if somebody went up, then that means that you can fix something, because you went down, they went up,
Sure.
something got rewarded, something
Of
didn't.
course.
Even if it's query shifting, a keyword research will show that, right? So yeah, I'm sorry. I think I lost the train of thought there on what we were talking about.
No, no, no. It's right on point. It's and I will go even further than that, because when I look at the way Alphabet, the
Yeah,
mothership, I read every quarterly report, and I told you that, and I look at how they just don't mention Google, the search engine we know. They don't even talk about it. Never ever. From for the last time I really read something was in 2017, so the end of the year report, when they said, so 2017, to the investors, they say, yeah, we killed all the content farms. That was 2013, right? And they announced it to the. So I'm waiting for the day they're gonna be proud enough of all this AI. I don't like that word. It's more like, well, let's not get into the debate of
yeah,
what is
yeah,
AI,
yeah.
the machine learning, deep learning, all this stuff. But whatever they want to call it, I'm waiting for the day when they'll be proud enough to tell the investors. That's probably the day where, okay, they got it right, but they are not there yet. And I think we agree that the as I'm guilty of simplifying. I call it rank brain, but you're right. It's multiple layers of. It's very complicated. But we got to make it easier for people to understand that it's really machine learning running the game right now. Actually, not only Google, but any search engine is about AI or more deep learning and machine learning, and it lost a lot of finesse. It's not the results are not as good as it was previously.
It's terrible.
They'll figure it out. They're gonna figure it out, but right now it's not good.
So they moved from string to things, but they were still doing a lot of basically manual action in there, not manual actions, but manually applying. But the last couple of years, like micro moment search, sure, that's great. If you want to know a time of a movie or what time of day or the temperature outside,
that's simple. Yeah,
that's just data factual, and that's very simple. A lot of SEOs think that Google has like full NLP, which they definitely do not. They're like a 6-month-old child, and I find that I think it's not. I know what direction they're trying to go, but I don't think it works. I think they got much better understanding when they didn't need to understand what the page was about because it was fuzzier. So if I put in, I put in search results now where the entire word is missing, like the entire query is missing, and it's not related to what I searched for. And there's that big thing like people thought they were losing all this traffic to featured snippets, and they're like 0-click results. And I was like, did anyone look at how many people are having to refine their searches over and over again? I mean, I'll do 10 sometimes refinements just to pull back something that Google used to be able to pull back on the first search. And I think Google's obsession with AI, machine learning, giving you things before you know what they are, the specifics of language. So now it's an entity, right? So it's like if I know this is a box and this is a bowl, but let's say there's something new that comes out that's a box bowl. I mean, that's a ridiculous thing, but put those together, Google wouldn't know what it is. And so it used to be able to fuzzy logic without having to know what it was, figure it out. All these links say box bowl. All these other articles say box bowl. All the header says box bowl. I don't know what a box bowl is. I don't need to know what it is. I just know this page is about that. And unfortunately, with language, you have to have a specific definition for everything. And as your query doesn't match the specific definition that they have, you get a very bad result. And they usually take out the important modifier. So I'll look like for gluten-free recipes. And when they show you what they removed gluten-free. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the most important part of my query, right? So I do a lot of informational search because I do a lot of research online, and I do a lot of research on topics, personal and professional. And so I see how bad it is. And I think a lot of other SEOs don't work in that, they're not doing a lot of research, not writing a lot of articles, or not doing a lot of presentations. So they don't see how bad it is because they're just using it for the micro moment stuff. Because I'll ask other SEOs, like, is it as bad for you? And they're like, no, it's fine. But I think if you're anyone who's looking for true information, it's really poor. I mean, it's so bad as to be irrelevant at times. And it wasn't that way 3-4 years ago.
A lot of SEOs, like you said, they're in the micro moment. And the same. I mean, we have a lot in common. I've been studying queries for years, years. And people don't understand that it's tens of thousands of but hours of staring at those goddamn search engine result pages, right? They don't. They don't realize that to get to a level at where you're at, it's a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot. And they try to, and now you can go into YouTube and find the answer to pretty much everything. And when I starting to make a lot of money with affiliation, with AdSense and all, and people are, well, you guys were just lucky. You just had to, the gold was just there. No, there was nothing before. Okay, I subscribed to AdSense like 4 months after the beginning of the program, so you couldn't go into YouTube and say, "How do I make
Yeah,
money with
that's
AdSense?" It
true.
didn't exist.
That's very true. Yeah, it's that's what I have to explain to new clients sometimes. Like I had one client look at me like back in December, and he's like, "Well, that's a lot of money." Like I said, "Well, you're not paying me by the hour. I'm like a lawyer, but the law changes every day. Like if you're a good
Yeah.
SEO, you spend hours every day of your own time. Most, you might have a spurt here or there where Google's not changing much and you don't have to do a lot of learning, but you're constantly having to update your knowledge and then figure out how it works with a black box that doesn't tell you how it works. And in fact, now is it tells you you can't do anything most of the time. So at least Mac
Hmm.
gave you a direction to go, like, oh, I need to research links, or I need to.
Mm.
Now it's like, you can't do anything, so good luck. And it's like, okay, well, great. Obviously, can do something, but I'm gonna have to figure it out. So you're right. There's like so much knowledge that goes into being a good SEO, and that's why um, anything that I do, I make sure that I really understand, and I'm like that personally too. Sometimes I mean known as like
Sorry,
opinionated.
I'm I'm getting
Okay, go ahead.
attacked.
Go ahead.
I'm getting attacked
But
by. I gotta close my window. I think mosquitoes are out. Let's bring out the word awesome. Awesome, awesome. How do you pronounce it? Awesome,
awesome. That's right. Yeah.
awesome. Because I read one of your piece, and you are awesome. You are what I call remarkable. You
Oh,
can produce content that deserves to get links from an organic perspective. I know how to make content that deserves to get attention, but that's the top 1% of the content creators. That's the top of the pyramid. And what's not fair, because this whole thing, okay, just be awesome, just make a great content, blah, blah, blah. What about the rest of the people? What about the rest of the world? Uh, Not everybody can be remarkable or awesome, and that's I think it's just so. I was gonna use the word pathetic, but it's just a straight up lie. It's just a straight up bullshit of trying that. Oh, do the best of what you are, blah blah blah. No, just regular. It's not for everyone to be the best at what you do. It's not the way the world is made, and the way Google is trying to say, just be remarkable, just be awesome. I know that you disagree with that point of view. Even if you are awesome, so you prove that you can be, you know how to be, but you also know that for the most of the people, it's just not possible. So they don't deserve to be visible. They don't deserve to have a little piece of the cake.
Well, I can't really have a problem with Google wanting sites to have good content and stuff, right? Because again, that's their product. If they brought back sites that
Hmm.
had horrible content, people would think they're a horrible search result. But I don't do like I find keyword research really tedious, so I usually farm that out to someone who loves it. Can I do it? Yes, but my heart's not in it, so I'm not going to be better than him. I don't do link building. I know how it works, but other people are better at it than me, so I have them do that. Why have a client get a mediocre result from me when someone else could do it so much better? So I send them that work, right? So I think that if it's not something you do well, then you just don't do it, right? Like anything
Hmm.
in life. There are
Sure.
doctors who are brain surgeons and there's doctors who are family practitioners. They all specialize in an area that they prefer and what they love to do. Not everyone's a surgeon, not everyone's a good diagnostician. I think SEO is not that different, right? Some of us are really analytical or really love this stuff and want to figure out how it works and spend our time and energy doing that, and other people might just want to write nice content and
Hmm.
they're really good at that, and they should do that. I think the problem is in the SEO world though is a lot of times there's this pressure to be one who does everything, and I think that you say like people are awesome, but we put a lot of work into being awesome. I wasn't a great writer out of undergrad. All right, I
Hmm.
wrote way too lengthy. I used way too many ands and columns and commas and right. And then I
You
had a
thought you were
professor.
French. In French, there's this one author, Philippe Solers, who wrote a 300-page book with one sentence.
I could have done that back in college. I actually had in my first my master's program, they gave a take-home test, and one of the instructions was to the whole class. They gave this test out, right? About 10 of us, and it said, "This is a 10-page exam. Don't go over, Kristine. This means you," because he's like, he knew I'd write 20 pages, right? So I worked on it, and I worked at a professor who helped me work on it, and then I started writing for like Search Engine Watch, and my editor was really great, and he helped me work on it. And now I've gotten to where I know how to make it work because I put on the Chemical Brothers Las Vegas edition, and the
Nice.
staccato nature of that music keeps me concise, right? And if I don't use that music, I can get long-winded. The point being is anybody at our level in this field has worked really hard to be awesome. You may have natural skills that make you a good SEO. You may be inquisitive or good at logical analysis or creative writer or really good at creative link building, whatever it happens to be. But you worked hard to do that because you know, like you said, nobody told us back in the day how any of it worked.
Mm,
There wasn't an instruction guide on SEO 101. I mean, Google didn't has that now, but it didn't have it when I started or when you started. We had to rely on each other to learn how things functioned. So I think
exactly.
the awesome part is knowing where your skill set lies and then applying it to something in SEO.
Yeah,
So
but what I meant is not Google puts a standard to what awesome is.
yeah.
Okay, it's their law. It's not the law, but it's their law. And not everybody's potential to be awesome is not the same because of many factors. um, so to be, of course, it's their search engine, it's their laws, their rules. We don't have anything to do with it, but it's just we do a better job than them to explain at what you need to do to when the whole BS that they tell people just make a great. Okay, how do you make a great site, Mister Google? Well, just make the best content you can. Okay, how do you make the best content you can? Well, just make a great site. Okay.
They do that. How do we recover from a core update? Just do good content. No, that's not how it works. I think no, you have a really good point, but I think that the two things, like we were just talking about, knowing what your skills are and what they aren't. And then Google does put out the quality raters guide, which I always tell every SEO to read when I do a talk. But I also make sure to tell them it's not an SEO guide, but it is what Google looks for in a quality site. So you don't have to do everything in there. But if you don't know how to make a quality site, say you're a site owner and you're like, I can't afford your services, but can you advise me? Sure. I'll tell you to read the quality raters guide. Come back to me and we'll tell you what you need to do better. I'll take a look at your site. So I think they do put it out that way, but the communication on different aspects of the algorithm doesn't exist really. It's more just, read the guide, do great content. Great content's all you need. I mean, if you look at the core update thing that Danny Sullivan put out, it's basically what it says, and then as you read the part of the quality raters guide, questions from the quality raters guide. I can't remember if it's from there or a Google Doc, but do you answer questions? Do you have expertise in this area? Great. That's just how to do a good site, but it doesn't mean all those are ranking factors. So I do
But
think they
it's the
give some
goal.
information. What's
It's
that?
the end result. It doesn't matter if they are or not ranking factors. Of course, people should not be mistaken, but if it's the end result, if it's the goal, if it's what you need to achieve, people should obviously, yeah, focus on that. And it's been proven that chasing the algorithm is not a good strategy. And
Totally agree.
even if I love to to push the limit of the algorithm, I'm also very much aware that since 2007, yeah, not much. 2000, yeah, let's say 2012. Since 2012, the way I do things has not evolved much. I adjusted a little bit, but yeah, it's and I don't think it's ever going to change again, especially since Amit Singhal left. and the direction where Google is going. They're not going to tweak it. They're not going to get rid of backlinks. Like, come on.
They want to because it's so easy to manipulate with them. But no, I totally agree. And that's why I was saying to you earlier, sometimes, I see SEOs who like to, do all this creative stuff, but my clients aren't ones that can tolerate the losses from creativity. So I do just solid SEO because, like I told you, the way I look at it is there are jobs on the line with the clients I work with. And so if I get all creative and I make a mistake, well, then someone loses their job. So I just do straight up, like you said, solid SEO. Things have come along that have been added to what I look at, like page speed or mobile first. And then I try to learn every intricate detail about how page speed works. Like Google doesn't just look at the overall page speed and you're done. And, it looks at certain things in the breakdown of the DOM and the load and time to first byte, all those things. But you're right. And sometimes I think anyone at our level gets this point because most of the people I know say this, but you get imposter syndrome because you're like, you forget that you spent 10, 12 years learning all this stuff, right? And then you're like, well, I'm just kind of doing the same things that I tell people to always do, but it always works. So why would I change it, right? Yeah. So, and that cuts is gone, so they're not creative with the algorithms anymore.
And you have all this hypocrisy about, oh no, don't buy links. It's it's against the guidelines, but they're all buying links. Come on, I'm shut up.
I never worked with a site where we bought a link, but we did creatively acquire them. So there's no such thing as a white hat SEO, right? I wrote an article.
What I'm saying.
I wrote 2 articles: white hat, gray hat, ass hats. Or white hat, gray
I read
hat,
it. I read it.
Yeah. The reason I wrote it twice is my editor moved from a publication to publication and wanted me to rewrite it. It's about 4 or 5 years apart. But the point being is that there is no such thing as a white hat because Google says to be white hat, you can never, ever, ever buy a link, manipulate a link, get a link. It has to come naturally. If you waited for that, and I did have a client who did because they didn't want to invest in link building, 8 months later, with 5,000 pages of unique, very good content, they had 80 visits because they didn't have any rankings because they had 0 links to the site, right? And so link building, which is usually what we've done, or link acquisition. I worked with a partner, and he had a guy there named David Mackenzie Kong, who's in the industry, but kind of a small footprint, so a lot of people don't know him. He would find the most creative ways to get links. He would find some it was one of them was like a finance site, and he found some financial podcaster that I had never heard of, but they had 100,000 followers. So he got the client on that program, and they got I think about 1,000 links from other finance sites when they were done, right? So anyway, but you're right. Like you can't just do it like, hey, just let the site sit there, and eventually it'll get links. And no one sees it; it doesn't get any links. Oh.
Yeah, no, it slipped because right now we have a kind of a heated discussion in France of this guy who is an ex-Googler and said, okay, all the platforms where you can buy links are shit. But we tracked him down and he is selling links. Okay, an ex-Googler who got investments about 200,000 euros to sell links, and he's just saying my way of selling links is better than yours, dude. Come on. So I missed the explanation about the context about my remark, but yeah, everybody's manipulating the PageRank. It's a beautiful theoretical concept. But yeah. SEOs have their ways and can be very, very creative to get links. Where I draw the line is the legal aspect of it, because the easiest way to get links is hacking. Okay, you just send bots to exploit vulnerabilities, and you're like, okay, but I don't destroy the site. I just put a page with all my links, or no, it's illegal. It's hacking. You got into a server. That's where. But the problem is that we only have one judge. Is how do you look at yourself in the mirror and being okay with what we do. And the moral compass is very different from individual to individual. And what seems right to you might not seems right to the next one. So how do we deal with that? And on the other hand, you have this official message of, oh no, we don't. So all those guys who pretend that they don't manipulate PageRank, and then you see them on Reddit or forums, on public talks, and no. I even had, I mean, you're a judge at the US Search Awards and the Canada Search Awards, or which ones?
Oh, I'm a global head judge now.
Global, okay. Global.
Yeah. I was a US Search Awards last year, though.
But in the EU Search Awards this year, an agency for the best SEO campaign put out this beautiful report, and I put the site in SEO Merch, and I knew the spots. I knew they were buying links. Like I could recognize the places. I mean, it's not hard to see a website and to tell if the links were bought or not. Come on, guys. You think you're talking to on CNN or Fox News? You're talking to, so you try to lie to someone who has several years of experience. No, that's what I hate the most. People who trying to bullshit you, trying to front face, being, no, I'm just a white horse. I follow the guidelines and I suck up to the Goodlers, but they do it like everybody else. They're not better, and that's what I hate the most into this whole industry, and the way some people try to pretend what they're not. I know who I am. I can look at myself in the mirror very well, and I'm okay with the flaws, with the added value. And that's it. Why do you try to pretend something that you're not,
Yeah, there's truth to that. And just on the link building thing, when I no longer work with my partner anymore, he was the link side. And so I tried to find a gray hat, white hat, whatever you want to call it, link builder. And people would refer me to somebody. Oh, they're great. They do white hat. And we start talking. They're like, no, we buy links. We have PBNs. And I'm like, and because this is the way I look at the Black Hat side. I have no problem with Black Hat, but I have a problem if you use it on a client's cash register. Because if the client's cash register is attached to jobs, back to jobs, but if somebody's
that's the asset.
Yeah, because if somebody's down there doing data entry for $10 an hour, and I do some Black Hat technique, and they get in the search results, then that person loses their job. I find another client, right?
Yeah.
I'm that's where I draw the line on that. It's like, it can't be on the cash register. If you want to put up 20 microsites, then spin them up, or a second site and spin them up, and have Black Hat the heck out of them, pull traffic, whatever. I don't care. That's Google doesn't like it, but who cares? But I just couldn't find a white hat link builder. I finally found somebody, but it took a lot of very big names that people referred me to that everyone was sure didn't do Black Hat link building. And I'm like, they all do Black Hat. And then go ahead.
No, I'm saying I come from branding, marketing, PR, even in press relations. Like, there's a trade-off, right? The journalist, maybe you're not giving money to the journalist, but it's it's not natural, okay? The way you get articles and you get press citations and stuff, it's not organic. Like, you gotta work there, and you have a way. There's a way to manipulate the journalist. Actually, it's pretty easy because.
Yeah, link building is one of I always tell clients, it is the most scrutinized part of Google's algorithms. So you never chintz out or cheap out on whoever's going to be building your links for you, because you have to know, like, if I'm going to use PR, how do I use it so Google doesn't see it as, you're saying, manipulated results, right? So it totally. And then when you talked about faking it or not being who people seem, I have often gotten site audits from clients, from somebody who's well known, and I look at that audit and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought this person knew what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't. And it just was like so disheartening to me because I had like all this belief that they were like this really good SEO, and what they did is pay other people to do the work and front the work to clients and stuff. So unfortunately, it's not usually the industry forces those people out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Fakers don't really
True.
usually make it a long time, but there has been a little bit of a problem with that in the U.S. in the last couple of years, where because of that cult of personality that's been going
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
where there are people that I'm not gonna say they're faking. I'm just gonna say that they move their wheelhouse and they're not as knowledgeable in the new part of the SEO world that they're trying to be in, and but they use a name maybe for something they were good at to promote themselves now, and then you got to fight the misinformation because they don't really know that part. Like link building, I know how the algorithms work. I can do a basic link disavow, but if it gets more complicated than that, I don't do that work because there's so many intricacies, so much you have to know that you learn over years and years and years, or even tools that you create, for getting links restored or disavow or people removing links, whatever. I just think there's sometimes people moving in from one area to another where they don't know the new area as well. I think it's more like that than it is like just straight up, I'm just trying to be a phony fake. There's some of that, but that usually
I
gets
think
eliminated.
I think you got two levels here because one level is yeah, I see someone doing a webinar or a public talk and I'm checking out the profile. I'm like, dude, you just make no money. Like you got
Yeah.
you what do you you probably have those sites where you can check the company earnings, right? And you're like you pretend to know what you're doing, you pretend to you give lessons to people, but you you have nothing, you made nothing. That's one level. And the other level is also like you said, trying to impress this cult of personality, trying to
Yeah.
I mean this whole fame thing, trying to I don't know. It's let's we're over 2 hours now, so let's end on a good note, on a positive note.
Okay.
Where do you see the future of search? Is SEO gonna die? are we still the best ever? I think search in general is the best acquisition pipeline, or I don't know the exact term,
That's
because
right.
of
Yeah.
intent, right?
Yeah.
Search in general, SEO in particular is part of search, but where do you see this whole thing going in the future?
Well, in the short term, just from what I'm hearing, so this isn't. I don't have a lot of data, just from other
Yeah,
SEOs.
just your point of view.
Yeah.
Mm.
They are telling me that they're cutting their paid campaigns by like 70, 80%, but they're either going up in organic, like enough to cover the difference, or they're going up to be close to the difference, and their bosses aren't understanding why are they cutting this much paid traffic and still doing really well. And of course, obviously there's a lot of reasons for that, cannibalization of keywords, whatever. Um, so I do think in the short term, Google might be hurting a little bit or all paid channels might hurt a little bit because people are going to be looking to save money, and they're noticing that they're not hurting the big enterprise sites, not the small ones. They're not hurting by cutting those budgets out, or not enough for it to make a difference. The other thing is going forward, it's hard to say. I thought that a year or so ago, if you asked me, I would say Google was trying to get rid of SEOs,
Mhm.
that they didn't want to deal with us anymore. Just some moves they were making to circumvent the SEO industry.
Mhm.
I'll go straight to developers, things like that. I think now they've kind of pulled back from that. I think they're back to realizing that we're part of the deal for now. Long term, it's hard to tell. If I mean, Google could kill this industry tomorrow if it wanted to, and so
Sure, for
that's a
sure.
little bit a little scary thought. I would advise anybody in SEO to make sure you have other skills too. Like I can build websites on WordPress. I have usability skills, accessibility. So if this all went away tomorrow, it would suck because I love this industry, but I could survive. Um, but it's hard to say because they were like you said, they were doing all these like innovation,
Mm.
and then they kind of stopped. Like word search kind of died on the vine, and you've mentioned before, and outside of this talk, Google everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't really see them doing much with that. I know they're doing a lot with Alphabet on like medical things and robots and trying to make us one with computers with synchronicity and all that on the outside. But I don't know. I feel usually have a strong feeling on where it's going, and right now I think we're in a state of flux, and especially with
Mm.
COVID and to see where that goes, I don't really know where it's going to go. I do think we might see a stronger play from Bing because Bing
You do.
started
That's
going,
interesting.
yeah, because Bing started going to conferences about a year and a half ago. And in every talk, telling us how they like SEOs, they want to work with SEOs, they need help from SEOs.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then there are people going to dinner with us, hanging out,
Okay,
talking.
that's cool.
Frederic Frederic is really cool. And he moved to the web spam team, the ranking team. And
Mm.
he would go out to dinner and talk to us. What do we need? What would we need? What could Bing do better? And we all know Bing converts better. They just don't have the traffic because they've
Yeah.
never really made a play since they first came out with Bing. So I do think there could be more players in the market. Maybe just one or two, DuckDuckGo and Bing. DuckDuckGo, maybe never, because I have talked to the owner of DuckDuckGo, and he kind of just says this is baby. It doesn't really need to ever be
Mm.
massive, you know. But I think Bing looks like they're putting more money into the search team. There's more
Hopefully.
people. There's more
Yeah.
attendance at conferences, and more attendance at conferences. Not as a not in the sales floor, but actually having people like Google used to do with their engineers
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
in the day.
Mm.
They'd hang out with us and play card games at PubCon and like, and they're kind of in that mode. So hopefully there'll be because I think all the major tech companies need a competitor.
True.
Whether
It's hard to if you want to optimize for two search engines. That's that makes it harder. That's for sure. But it's
remember when we
healthier
had
for
like
sure.
five
That
though, like
you, yeah.
we had to know all the algorithms and we had to like who's making us the most money? Well, this one or that one. So.
Yeah, no. We even had this SEO contest that ran for years before one person was able to achieve a ranking on all those different search
That's awesome.
engine. And yeah, what I want to say to end this is someone like you as the why are you so good? Why are you one of the best at what you do? What makes a very good, like one of the best SEO is never give up. Never ever give up. That's the difference between the average or the bad and the rock stars, like the top of the top. And you do really define what it means to never give up on any level, like personal, business, SEO. I really enjoyed this talk, and I think we get to do it again because that's a long one. I'm not gonna cut it. I'm gonna put all the whole thing. But yeah, I want you back. We got to
Okay,
talk
yeah, I
more.
would love to. It's fun to just talk SEO on a Saturday afternoon. I had to think what day it was.
Exactly.
COVID, 2 months in the house. So it's like, is it Saturday or Sunday? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we lost track of time, and it's we're used to being in lockdown anyway. as SEOs, I've been locked down for 15 years, so it doesn't
I
change
know.
much.
I, t-
We're more
I tell
resilient.
everybody it's like normal wrapped in the surreal because I'm used to working at
Mm.
home on my computer. But
Yeah.
I used to go to the gym at night or I used to go out to eat with friends. And that's where it gets real. When I leave the house, it's a mask, it's gloves, it's glasses, But otherwise, I'm on my computer in the house.
And we are blessed to be working on the internet with everything that's gonna happen, the carnage, economic. The internet is, yeah. I think I had this big. I was yelling at a bunch of SEOs who were complaining. Oh, I don't feel motivated. Blah blah blah. Don't, dude. come on, respect a little bit the rest of the
Yeah.
world. Like,
Yeah.
what, you can't get off Netflix or Twitter? That's so hard.
Yeah, I think back to like when people had the 1918 pandemic, and they were, they didn't have anything to entertain themselves but whoever they were stuck in the house with, and that could have been 10 people in like a 3-bedroom home. Here we're on a computer watching Netflix. Now that's a point of privilege. There are a lot of people who don't make much money who have 10 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and this is a miserable time. But for us to complain about this, I mean, what is there to complain about really other than a financial,
Yeah,
and all of us who've worked for ourselves have been through these ups and downs on finances. So
of
we know
course.
how to
Hmm.
mentally handle it. If this is all new to you, like I went through the .com crash of back then. I got laid off with 200,000 other people, no jobs, $300 in my pocket, and no severance, and no, I was one of my first jobs, no unemployment to speak of, $800 a month. And I had to survive. And then 9/11 happened right after that, and I still had to survive. So I've been
Wow.
through this, and I've been through
Mm.
so I've been through this kind of situation, and anyone who works for themselves who's a consultant has been through this kind of situation where the clients just didn't come, whatever reason they dried up. You had to reinvent yourself or redo things. So I think,
You
yeah,
find a
so I
way.
think we're very
Never give up.
fortunate. I
Mm.
think we're very fortunate, and I do feel
Mm.
badly for the people who don't have options, aren't going to have options. They're going to have to go back to work. They may be afraid to go back to work. I don't have to deal with that.
Mm.
So yeah, so you're right. We're very blessed to be able to work with what we do, that we do it online, and that we can get paid very well to do it. We've worked hard to get there, but that doesn't mean we're still not blessed for the opportunity.
Exactly. And I think we really need to acknowledge that uh, we work on what I call a territory. It's not country.
Yeah,
We are the guides. We have the keys of that territory where a lot of people. It's unfair. I mean, the world is unfair. But yeah, let's be blessed. Let's appreciate what we have and never
yeah,
give up.
exactly, exactly.
Merci, Christine.
Merci.